This is Two Shy Guys a Mile High. Cue the damn music. We back in here in the lair.
Yes, sir.
Your boy P-Wil.
Al Digger.
WB, fly with me.
Back again, fellas.
Yo, keeping the socials distances. I'm about tired of it, man. Honestly, I'm about tired of it. But you know, you gotta do what you gotta do to get back to normalcy, whatever that might be, and get back to it quickly, man. So
I feel that, man. But it's just crazy times, man. I'm masked up right now. You know, mask on, mask off.
It's like mute. You gotta put the mask on, then take the mask off when you're talking. But yeah, man. But speaking of that, like, has it been hard to like get them where y'all at, or has it been decent to try to stay masked up? Because I haven't heard. I don't be hearing a lot like if they have it or not. They don't be communicating a lot of
from like
what's open.
I had some. Luckily, I had some. My parents had some masks stashed up before the whole thing went down. So man, they sent me some care package full of some masks. So
yeah, I've been getting lucky too. I've been having people from work looking out, give me some masks. My mentor gave me a couple, and then my family gave me a couple too. Mother-in-law, they side family gave me some stuff. So it's been good.
And shout out to the people on the front line though too. Hey, we gotta shout out, yo. God be with you, whatever you believe. Just we appreciate everything because we not out here surviving without y'all sacrifice. That's huge. So we gotta start there, man.
I will say overall though, I have smelled less bad breath because now if you smell bad breath with mask on, it's you. So that is one thing that's good. That's positive. So.
Yeah. You kind of know. You can self check on that one. You're like, ooh, that garlic pizza. I should not had that at lunch. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to go into the meeting. Oh, it's virtual. It's good. It's
like the wood, man. The breath test. You got to do the breath test.
But that's another thing too, though. Like communication wise, like how. Like, you don't have to worry about that, though, now, because we kind of got to have that distancing. So, you're right.
And that's why we're going to make this whole episode about communication.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And you just communicated the fact that we are doing this for a purpose. And with the purpose of this episode, we're going to just talk about the importance of communication, point blank, period. Because in life, it's just a key foundational skill that you just need to have. I think there's different types of aspects of communication that can go into a really deep topic, but in general, from what I take away of it, you have a thought or a message, and you as the person sending the message has to efficiently get it to the receiver so they can understand what to do with that.
Yeah, and that's not as easy as it sounds, man.
Very complex.
When you can factor in a lot of different things, right? Like not even just personalities. And that, that's a whole another ball of wax, right? So like, how do you take what you know and try to convey that to somebody, right? That's what you're saying, man. And it's not easy. So
and it's also a difference because you got to convey it, then you got to convey it effectively, effective communication. So you got to understand what you're trying to convey, what message you're trying to convey, and in a way that you realize who your listener is. And how you get the message through to your listener, because every listener may be a little bit different.
Yep.
You definitely hit on the big key right there is knowing your audience. You got to know who you're dealing with. So, got to know the context, the situation, environment, etc., the right variables, so you can start effectively getting your message or your point across. And it's a very hard skill, but most of the time, you're just often suited just keeping it simple, just really becoming a good listener as well, so you can relay the messages that you need to get the actions that you want to happen. It's very, very, very key as well too. And there's a difference between effectively listening versus just hearing somebody. Listening is definitely an art because it's being intentional, really being locked in, not just hearing something so we'd be like, hurry up so I can get my point across. That's another skill as well.
No, that's huge. And especially in a collaborative environment, right? You know what I'm saying? Like we're all, self-quarantining, doing our thing. And now you kind of have to sit with yourself a little bit. But, how do you convey a message to somebody when you don't even know where they're coming from, right? You got to listen up and kind of just hear their side of the story, so you can get all the pieces and get all the perspectives. So it's like,
this is my story.
but for real though, that's like it's a two-way thing is what I'm getting at, and sometimes as the sender, we're thinking we're doing the right thing, and we're thinking that they're getting it, and they're communicating back to us, and they're thinking that we got it, and then we go off and we do our own thing, and we come back and it's like, oh, what happened? It was one thing that was missing. It was that clarity piece.
Yeah,
that's one of the key things, that clarity. When you communicate, you got to make sure, as the sender and receiver, that you at least acknowledge, hey, this is what you're saying. I get it. This is what you need from me. This is the message that I get from you. And if you can't walk away from that exchange, then there's no clarity there.
And the hardest thing I think about it during these trying times is the way that, you know what I'm saying, the visual aspect of communication. And when you actually see somebody, it's those body language, it's those nonverbal cues that you can submit to someone and receive from your audience. So it's like, seeing somebody, you get the eye contact, you see somebody, shrugging their shoulders, they probably ain't trying to hear what you're talking about. They ain't listening to you. When you got that effective communication, you looking eye to eye with somebody, it just gives you that much more force behind what you're saying and that much more energy. Yeah. Because it's all about the energy that you convey a message and how somebody receives that same message and the way they receive that message. Because I might be telling you something like, have a good day or something. I'm slouched over. That ain't the same as, hey, man, have a great day. Right. You're looking at me in my eyes, and I'm, we're giving a handshake back before the, the
a little more vigor, a little more vigor, a little more purposeful kind of interaction there. Yeah. Yeah.
That can play tricks on you as well. Sometimes the hard part about the verbal and nonverbal communications things that people just give off during speech is that sometimes you can read too deep into it, and it can alter your perception of that person and change the whole dynamic of the whole conversation as well, too. Yeah. So that's why it's also important to follow it up by asking questions. And it's not just about asking questions, but asking the right questions, seeing if whatever you're saying, if they're actually understanding it, if they're receiving it, just really trying to be empathetic, step into their shoes, see where they're coming from. That usually helps as well. Empathy is something that we should just practice more, because the more people are empathetic, you can understand where people are coming from, and then we can start working together to bring together the plan that God has for the world vision, whatever,
I got a question right there. Like, do you like empathy, like especially in these times, man? Like do you find it is easier to communicate with somebody who's empathetic to your message? And what I mean by that, do you think it's easier to get your point across to somebody who's empathetic versus somebody who's kind of just forced to be in that situation?
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier. And then by them being empathetic, you can kind of see that they're actually buying into what you're saying as well, too. And once you have the connection point to say that we're here, we understand, I think more progress can be made, because you can start seeing where other people are coming from, and you can start negotiating and start throwing out more brainstorming ideas and really coming with an open mind to a conversation to be able to make the solution that's required to get the desired result, because that is very key as well.
Because empathy connects us. Yeah. It connects us.
And especially in the workplace. So, question, how do you deal with communication at the workplace? Effectively communicating something at the workplace.
Oh, let me kind of take this one. Yeah, go ahead. Because my workplace is different. My workplace has been different for a minute, right? So my workplace has been at the house. You know what I'm saying? Shout out Bite Size. We up in here. And that's been amazing, right? Because to be able to be in your home, as an entrepreneur, as a self-employed, cat, is different when the motivation was already there, right? Like, I'm communicating with baby girl on a different level. Like, we're communicating our relationships, we're communicating our business dealings, right? We communicate, about our children. So it's my work is literally in my home, right? And getting that in order. So it's been incredible, because we had the relationship before, right? Before we became employed and partners. And so it's been interesting, because we've had to build that trust throughout the years, and it wasn't easy. And so I'm saying we've had to send out a message, and it was like, hey, I thought you said this. No, I didn't say that. So we've had to go back and forth and kind of have these deep conversations of like, okay, I need you to just when you communicate with me, can you give me more of this? I need less of that because I'm thinking you saying this and that. So we've it hasn't been as bad as a struggle as I thought it would be as more mature we got in our relationship. It's been incredible. You know what I'm saying? Because I think we're learning from each other, and every time we make a mistake, we're able to say, hey, okay, how can I do better at communicating? Because we know that's the foundation for any relationship is having that communication be tight.
I understand that because you're dealing with the same thing, you know, and then at my workplace, it's just effectively communicating to the team that's following you. Because we still got to, you know, pump out a product. We still got to produce results out in the workplace. And then, you know, being the leader of multiple teams and having to collaborate with multiple teams at the same time and all getting together on the same playing field and actually having the same mindset and goal in mind. And you know you got people influences, you know you got other outer sources that's happening, variables that's happening to you to all conflict, work on the same goal at the same time is hard. So being able to communicate what the goal is, what the desired goal is, the time frames and all the parameters that you're trying to project to get to the end result, it's kind of hard getting that people on the same page. So you got to manipulate that stuff by putting together data based on historical information that you have and actually shows you how you get to that desired output, because you know you can get to the desired output. You know what it is. You've done it before, and actually producing that on a higher scale and a higher level, you just got to get everybody on the same playing field. So being able to show numbers and making it tell a story visually to someone and actually getting them to buy in on what your plan is is one of the things that I see going on at work.
And there's so many different styles of communication. You have written communication, you have verbal communication, then you have the nonverbal communication, and then you have data communication, the communication that you show from metrics or charts or key measures that help show you, am I making it, am I not making it, or just identifying problems or root cause solutions. So the world is changing very fast, and I think the more that we continue to go into the future, we're going to start seeing the nature of the data communication change over and over and over again. So that's going to be something unique to happen in the future, I think, as well. And another point, just about workplace, I was thinking about that. You hit on interesting points, but I was more so thinking internally about how do you operate and communicate at work, knowing that you can't 100% be your true authentic self, because I think being authentic helps you be able to just communicate to those your messages, your thoughts, and just be open to everybody. But as you don't know people and there's distrust, you can't really be as authentic, so that can kind of change your communication style a little bit as well. But I think at the core, you still have to keep it simple, keep it basic, and communicate your authentic self out there in the world and out there to people, so you don't have to really think about what lies you're telling or what other things you're doing to come up with the right words to get your team to achieve a goal. So I think it's just hard, and it's something that you have to balance, because it's hard you have to communicate at work, then you come home, and then you have to communicate to your significant other, and then you have to communicate to your family, then you have to communicate to your friends. So there's so many different pockets.
But it's content. It's content, right? And that's one of the 5 C's, right? It's content, and it's okay.
So why you say that? Explain the 5 C's.
Yeah, break that down, because you just said that twice.
I did. So we're
40% of the way gone, and they don't even know what you're talking about. So let's break it down.
That's fine. We sprinkled that in here over the last few minutes, but the 5 C's of effective communication, and normally it's clarity, right? And that can be by the receiver and the sender. You have to be clear on what you're saying. Consistency, obviously, that speaks for itself. I mean, is the message pretty much? Is it what it's supposed to be? Is it the texture that you're looking for? Is it consistent? Is it they're saying one thing and doing something else? Right? You got to be consistent in what you're saying. Creative. Obviously, you know, maybe you're doing new content. That's another C, but you have to create that. So how do you do that? You have to take an idea and a thought and put it together. So to communicate that, you have to think a little bit more outside the box than you normally would. Content, once again, that speaks for itself. What is the crux of the message that you're trying to portray? Like, what do I want my audience to get out of that? And the final C, which I believe is the most crucial point of it, and thank you for guys allowing me to go through this. You know, I enjoy this type of stuff. Is the connection. We gotta have a connection with your audience. You gotta have a connection with somebody you're talking to. And to go back to what you were saying, WB, is how can you do that when you're in a work environment and you feel like you can't be your authentic self and genuine self and communicate like you normally would at home? You can't.
But
you can't, because I mean, it's not like you're not being authentic though. You're able to understand your audience and communicate the way you need to. You're not being disingenuous, but I'm not going to address people at work the same way I would address, my wife, or my best friends, right? It just doesn't make any sense, because my content wouldn't even matter. It wouldn't make sense.
Content's different.
So my content is different because I'm the conduit for the information. How I present it, I am being genuine.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like, people listening to this might not have heard me in this type of setting and see me in a certain light, but when we're out here delivering content and trying to help people, you have to go and understand what the audience is.
I will tell you what is genuine. The respect I have for you for breaking down the 5 C's, because I thought you was going to fumble, because you just kept going through that hole and getting that touchdown. You broke that down very good. You had some solid good points right there. So good job on that. I'm proud of you for relaying that message to all of us and communicating that effectively.
Thank you, sir. It's silly. I love y'all.
Yeah. But it's always fun to see different Black leaders have different communication styles too. When you start looking back in history, look at Malcolm X's communication style and how he was able to get his message across to the Black community, how fired up he got the Muslim community back then. You have Martin Luther King, another person in the civil rights movement. It was a different type of style, a different type of flavor on it. Then you have Barack Obama, president of the United States. He had a different swagger and a different type of tone.
That's
and
the 6
speech.
C is changed.
Yeah. Because there's 5 P's of vocal delivery. I'll break this down. I had to write down my notes. I wasn't as official as my guy right here, but this is WB. The 5 P's of vocal delivery are power, pace, pitch, pause, and prosody. And prosody is just more so the tone, the stress, and the rhythm and diction on what you have to say. So if those who didn't know. But just seeing the various communication styles that people have, you really need to just observe more. God gave you 2 eyes and 2 ears because you need to listen more than you speak, and you need to see more than you speak. So it's good to always take good components away from good communicators, good orators that you can apply in your life to push your communication to the next level.
Because it all comes home, and you deal with communication enough with family, and then your loved ones and stuff. So being just touching on relationships, the more you communicate, the more you make things clear, and you build that trust.
Yeah.
What I'm saying? Because nobody likes unclear guidelines. So you want to, what I'm saying? And also effective communication, it builds that engagement and that teamwork between, the 2 people that's working on it. So, being at home, I got to communicate effectively with the lady. So it's like, what I'm saying? We just got to be on the same playing field. We got to be on the same page. We got to have the same values. We got to help each other understand what we're trying to say. Mm-hmm. And then, it builds that comfortability with that person. It helps you build
what you're getting. You know what you're getting.
And in this time, what I'm saying, it's not always easy to express your emotions and your feeling. And the more you're comfortable with somebody, the more you feel like you're open to actually express that and communicate those problems that you got effectively, because you got somebody else that's on your team that you understand, that understands you,
right?
That's giving you the same energy
and that connection,
that connection in between each other. So it helps build that relationship, and it builds that, what I'm saying, you're more enamored with your loved one and stuff. You feeling that more of that trust and more of that commitment and that more of that comfortability, and it's a good way to feel, and it helps you understand what the key values and your core values are, so that the other person can help you bring you to your end goal or what your goals are. It
gives you that magnetism that it helps attract people when you can just be your true authentic self and really just be open and honest.
It gives you the culture.
And it helps so much with reducing the amount of assumptions that we make. So that is very key, to communicate clearly with your significant other, to reduce assumptions. Once assumptions start happening, your mind can go so crazy, making all types of fairy tales, fallacies, and...
But see, that clarity, movies, though. That clarity. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, so even tying it back to work, like you have a team that you're dealing with. Here, boom, this is what we're doing. Bop, bop, bop. You can see it right in your face. It's clear. We need this done by Tuesday at 8. You know what I'm saying? With your relationship. Babe, I need you to, Tuesday I need you to be here at 7. That's pretty clear. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a defined date. There's a I need you. I'm requesting to be here at this time. So clarity. I mean, and it gives you that level of trust because now you've communicated to the point you've said, I need this from you as my significant. I need this support. I need it at this time and because of this. So now you have the context, the full package, and now you feel more secure in making a decision with that person.
And then both that accountability because you know that you're trying to portray a message, so you got to be the same willingness to listen to the other person in the situation as well because you got to be a good listener. And that's one of the key points in effective communication is being a good listener. Is because they got to portray. They also have to say a message, and you have to understand where they're coming from. Like you said earlier, WB, it's like everybody can have a different perception on a message that you're trying to like portray. Like you might say something, but I might take it in a whole different way.
Yeah.
So being clear and concise about your information that you're saying and relaying, you got to make sure that you're on the same wavelength with somebody else. Because, you know, saying things can get very much twisted, especially the things that people are saying, saying nowadays and how comfortable people are saying whatever they want.
Yes.
Like we see people just talking, out the side of their neck.
Out the side of the neck. You can still get touched.
I had a question too. Like, how do you ask like questions at the end of like when you're done like presenting or if you're done talking to somebody? Do you normally ask questions? Like I try to ask like clarifying questions at the end. Like, do you guys have any that you kind of like go to like because there's been situations when I've communicated something, I'm like, man, I've nailed it. I feel like, oh, you got it. We've talked about it. You've asked your questions. Now I've asked my questions. Has it ever been a point where you was like, damn, I need to. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. Like even with all these clarifying questions, I don't know.
No, I think that comes up, especially like saying what being. Younger, haven't been on those job interviews and saying as you continue to progress in your career, I like to still apply for jobs and still go on job interviews to see what's out there. And you always ask, at the end of the interview, it's like, what, give me a time where, what is a successful day in this company like, or, different questions that you may ask them because you want to be understanding what you're getting yourself into or what you're going to be doing. So you want to ask those questions to gain that clarity, like you said before. So I know that's a question that I always ask is like, what's a day in the life of the job here? Or what's a day in the life of being an employee at this spot? Or what's a day in the life of being your own entrepreneur or your own businessman? How do people do like that? And so being able to talk to my mentor and saying like, what are you going through on a daily basis? What type of questions are you being asked so I can understand that if I'm trying to get into the same position like you are in or something like that.
Fair. So you're asking like questions to the mentors that you would ask to somebody trying to get information, so you can build your repertoire.
Exactly.
Well. Yeah,
so you understand. Okay, what did you go through? And then the same thing that we're trying to do here, we're telling about our experiences on this podcast, so that people can take that and run with it and add it to their repertoire of moves and repertoire statements that they can, because they may be in a similar situation. They might look at us and say, okay, I'm a guy from the Chicago, I'm a guy from Denver, I moved out here to Seattle, I moved out here to another place, and how did you deal with all the changes and stuff that happened? How did you adapt to things? How did you effectively communicate to people on your team and what you're doing in your life? So hopefully people can take that away from this podcast, and what we're doing is positive things that we have communicated and what they're actually receptive to and what they're taking away from this
message.
It's a lessons learned, man, because we, like you said, we want to bring content that's relevant for not only us in our lives, but something that can help everybody listening. You know that you're gonna have these particular barriers or these particular things that you go through. Here's 3 other perspectives that hopefully can help you have some arsenal to kind of deal with it. Like, okay, they deal with it that way. Maybe I deal with it that way, but okay, at least I understand that I'm not alone. So it gives you that sense of community as well. So hopefully that's what, everyone's taking away from this. Just hopefully we communicate that, in episodes now and in the future.
I think for me, in terms of the clarifying question, I always try to relay back what they say to me to make sure that I heard them right. So I'll just say, this is what I'm hearing, and then reiterate what I think that they are absolutely trying to get across to me to make sure that I get that. Sometimes I will say, do you understand, after I'm speaking? No, I mean, no, I'm saying something like that, but more politically and correct and with structure and rigor behind it, so you know what I'm saying.
Right.
But just those different things that can help you get a little bit deeper understanding, more intimate knowledge if you didn't. Sometimes I think that I could almost ask too many questions to a fault, and that's something that I'm trying to improve on. But for me, it's just something that serves me well is to make sure that I'm not making false assumptions. But there's a boundary that you have to make sure that you are listening effective, asking the right questions so you can actually understand what's going on. Because you keep asking questions, people could get frustrated and say, "Are you really listening to me? What don't you understand?" But having that patience is just a part of the process because perspective matters, education matters, what they are exposed to, not exposed to matters to be able to figure out, can you get your point across? Because sometimes you just can't, to be honest.
But stay there though too, because now with this new way we're in, and we engage in virtual teams, right?
Yes.
Like how other than ask questions, like a lot of questions, how would you engage your team in this virtual setting nowadays?
I don't know. I think we need to leave that for the listeners to kind of think about. And I'm saying that because I have to think about it a little bit more. And that's something that I'm trying to improve. And my growth area is that how do you communicate effectively to people that can't see you? And all you have to rely on is your email, is your instant message, is your voice on a WebEx call, is your Mattermost chat, or whatever it may be. It's so much different than being physical versus being virtual, and the different dynamics. Because there's a lot of assumptions and undertones that could be taken away from an email or a text message that would not normally happen if you're actually on the phone versus somebody, versus seeing them on FaceTime versus being in the same physical vicinity.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be like what the new norm is for a little while. Yeah. So a lot of these companies and a lot of people that's, doing businesses are going to have to make a little bit of change into what they were doing because this virtual platform thing is around and here to stay. And during this time like this, it actually promoted that and actually showed a lot of people where they were susceptible to actual failure because of times like this, and they weren't set up and didn't have the structure in place to actually be able to host these things virtually. So I think there's going to be a lessons learned for a lot of people, and we're going to have to be able to adapt with the new change that we're experiencing.
Yeah, man. We can communicate and talk all day.
Yeah, but we want to ask the listeners, how do you engage with your team in a virtual setting as we got it going on right now? So how would you engage with your team in a virtual setting, a virtual platform? Want to open that up to the listeners, and, make sure that you reach out to us anytime at 2shyguysamilehigh@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, like us on iTunes, Spotify. If you like the content, rate us, contact us, let us know. We appreciate the time. We appreciate you listening. Anytime. This is P-Wil signing out.
Yo, Al Digger.
And WB, come fly with me. And soon, like I said, we're going to be getting some sponsorships, so we'll be communicating that. And we want to communicate that we love y'all. Thank you for riding with us on the journey. And we hope to see y'all soon in the distant future. Distance.
Yeah.